Jalen Hurts still won't throw the ball over the middle of the field. Why is it happening? How can they fix it? What's going on? We're talking ball today on the PHLY Eagles podcast with Fran Duffy and Zach Berman coming up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Tuesday, 2 being the operative syllable there, because it's 2 o'clock. I'm Wulf. To my left, Fran Duffy. To his left, Zach Berman. We're here to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's presented, all of it, by our good friends at Bet365, where it's never ordinary. You know the deal. They are our presenting sponsors, baby. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited for the show. Always enjoy a Tuesday with Fran and you, and Julia. And yeah, there's so much to discuss. This is not a quiet week in Eagles world, if you will.
We talked a lot about Nick Sirianni yesterday. We're not going to spend too much time on that today, but very quickly, what did he say in his press conference after we spoke yesterday?
Yeah, 24 hours after the game, he apologized for the way his energy and enthusiasm was directed. He said he was trying to be energetic and enthusiastic, but he needs to direct that better. He needs to kind of focus it on his players, and so he apologized for the way that came across.
Do you think it's notable that he apologized? Do you think that was directed to him to do?
I mean, he chose to do it, but I got to imagine there were conversations behind the scenes. That story took on a life of its own. As we discussed on yesterday's show, I can't imagine the Eagles were thrilled with that being the story after a win. And yeah, he brought it onto himself. And again, it's like we discussed on yesterday's show, whether he felt it was merited, whether the organization felt it was merited. The reality is that there's a decorum associated with that job. And he didn't uphold the decorum expected of him.
All right. Well, that's all we need to talk about on that front. We've got more to talk about. We talked to the coordinators today. We're going to hear from Fran at some point about Jalen Hurts, but I actually think we should just keep this going. You and me, Fran.
I'm enjoying this so far.
This is
it's
the
like
meta.
Watching yesterday's show.
Well, this is the meta of, you see, we're not using the middle.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
That is impressive.
You see what we've been doing.
That's why he's the best host in the city.
Best host in the city, without a doubt.
Well, best thumbnail writer in the city. You see what that would also Jalen space Hurts. Nothing in the middle. You get it.
But you don't want to explain a joke. You taught me that.
No. I think when you explain a joke, it's okay. It's just that if it's not a good joke, then it's not going to make it funnier.
So that's what I was supposed to learn.
Yeah.
All right. So there's one other piece of news, which I actually thought was more important news yesterday than Nick's apology. I understand that's kind of dominating the conversation. But the important news is that Jordan Mailata is out for a few weeks. Nick very seldom discusses injuries, but something with term to it, like something that is going to be an extended period, he'll announce that. And so Jordan Mailata is going to miss a few weeks. This is a big loss for a team going up against the defense this week that's number 1 in the NFL in sacks.
It seems like the plan will be Fred Johnson at left tackle. Fred, what's your expectation for level of play and how the offense will have to compensate for that from its just offensive structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fred looked good when he first got into the game against the New Orleans Saints, right? So Lane Johnson goes out, Fred Johnson steps in. He does a nice job, especially in the run game. But I felt like in the fourth quarter that the pass rushers for New Orleans really started to get a bead on how to attack him. And mainly the big thing was stress him early with speed and then attack him right down the middle and win with that bull rush. Despite the fact that he is so big and just naturally strong, he struggles to drop his anchor. He doesn't always play with great technique. And so you see those bull rushes consistently able to work against him. And I thought Tampa really leaned into that. He gave up. It was something like double-digit pressure, something along those lines in that game against the Bucs. And so the Giants are going to be watching that film, and they're going to lean right into the same thing. And
theoretically, he's supposedly a little bit more comfortable on the left side than on the right side, so maybe you expect some little bump there. But they do have options.
Yep.
You could move Mekhi Becton, which I would find unlikely. I think they want to keep him at right guard.
Yep.
Even if it is an extended absence, or you could have a quick hook for Fred Johnson, and if he doesn't play a good game, then the next week maybe you go to Tyler Steen.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Steen would be a guy that I would look at pretty closely. It's a position he played in college. We've seen him do it here in Philadelphia, not this summer, right? We didn't see him play left tackle at all in camp, but he is a guy that has experience playing that position. And so, to me, that would be another option that I think is worth looking at, especially if you think Mailata is going to be out for 3 weeks-ish, for maybe close to 4 weeks, and you don't want to put him on injury reserve. I would look at Steen as a potential replacement there.
It's interesting to me, just by coincidence, but this is kind of how it works out. The positions we were discussing over the summer as depth is a concern here.
Yeah.
Almost all of them have been tested so far. You look, swing tackle is a big spot. Yeah. Wide receiver. We talked about backup tight end. We don't know Goddard's situation, but we saw that in this previous game. Safety in that Tampa Bay game, right? So they've really been hit at positions where the depth is a bit of a question.
That's a good point. What else did you learn from the coordinators today, Mr. Berman?
Yeah, so the conversation about Nick Sirianni calling plays on defense. Now
inconsequential, Fangio says.
Yeah, so actually there's a little more to it than I initially thought. I thought Nick was just kind of falling on the sword, but Nick's not calling plays, but Nick suggested this yesterday, and Vic Fangio confirmed it today, that a head coach kind of gives I guess like a philosophy, either,
that was our supposition.
Yeah,
yes,
be aggressive here, concede here, retreat, things of that nature, right? What?
I just like the concede, retreat is very funny. Like,
well, in these situations, I can't imagine you have these
plunder,
long, drowned out conversations. So there's probably certain words, retreat.
The defensive line starts marching back towards its own end zone. Like,
checkmate. So that's what happened. It was on a play.
Retreat is hilarious.
I think that's the word that Nick Sirianni used yesterday.
Oh, I'm not making fun of you.
Oh, okay, all right. I was like, I'm just being a reporter here, man. And so Vic Fangio said today that Nick, he made clear, Nick didn't call any plays. Okay, but he said that Nick, kind of had an idea of a way to approach a certain situation. It was a little different than the way Vic Fangio would have. The Browns gained a few more yards than the Eagles wanted, but it was inconsequential to the game. And it's nothing. He really downplayed it as nothing to worry about.
And then I asked him, how does it compare Nick's level of influence on the defense to other head coaches you've worked for? And he said it's basically the same.
Yeah, and I don't think this is Vic touting the company line, because he has a way of getting across things that he wants to get across. Like, he made a point of mentioning in his Cooper DeJean answer.
Yes,
he was like,
basically the reason that the Cooper DeJean hasn't been on the field yet is because they have too many walkthroughs on Wednesdays.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's like, you can't prepare a guy if we don't practice. Yeah. He's like, Thursday you're putting your game. He's like you're already late in the week. Yeah. Friday's your Friday practice. He's like, so we didn't have time.
Field, yeah.
So you and I both picked up on that, and it was a way. So like, my interpretation of that is if Vic wanted to infer or imply rather that Nick has a heavy hand, I think he would be creative in doing that, and I don't think this is significant.
I also don't think he would accept that.
Yeah, like, exactly.
The Nick on defense has played out exactly as we thought. I think it's like, he's allowed to be like, hey, like, maybe be aggressive here or not. But yeah, I mean, he's not telling Vic what plays to call. Like, that would be insane. And Vic wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, we talked about that in the postgame show. It just felt very unlikely that he was jumping on and saying, actually, no, we're playing cover 3 here. That was not the way that I interpreted that.
And so the question from the super chat that we have here, and for you, Zach, is from Jason. Who does Nick's lie about overriding Vic serve?
I think it's Nick trying to come off. I said this yesterday, and I believe it. Nick trying to come off accountable, and
but I don't think it's.
I'm in charge of everything, and I'm going to fall on the sword for the stuff that's bad. But it could come off disingenuous.
And then I think that's
Yeah.
I think the more he does it, that is how it comes off.
By the way, there is a piece of breaking news here, if I may add.
Please, ZB,
No, I'm
break
not,
it down.
No, I'm not reporting this. I have Twitter X in front of me here. This is per Jordan Schwartz.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can guess. Is it Eagles related?
No. Why don't I just tell you? Because we have great stuff from Fran coming. Fran coming. Fran has, yeah, there you go. Okay. So Amari Cooper has been traded to the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, I have him on my fantasy team. That's good.
Yeah, me too. Traded for him in a dynasty league last week.
So 2 wide receivers traded today. DeVonta
Interesting.
Adams and Amari Cooper.
Do you think that he got traded for more or less than Jahan Dotson?
Good question. That's a really good question.
Because it was about the same for DeVonta Adams was a 4-3, right?
So it starts as a 4. It could go all the way up to a 2. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably about the same. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably worked around what DeVonta Adams went for, is my guess.
Now you with Dotson as the comparison, you're talking about like it's a rookie deal. You get 2 years.
Yes,
of it.
that's the difference.
The money's different, but I mean, they're certainly not.
The player's different too.
What they paid for here.
That's true.
Do you think this is a precursor to the Browns tearing it all down?
I mean, the thing is that what we said last week going into that game, and not to get too deep into the Browns, but was that my guess was that the reason I hadn't benched Deshaun Watson yet was that they wanted to see this offense with everybody installed, with Nick Chubb in the lineup, the offensive line healthy. My guess is that Cooper was just fed up. Like we said that you could kind of see it on film, like the body language starting to falter, and so my guess is that he just kind of. He said retreat, and he wanted out.
He conceded.
Yeah. Yes, he conceded.
And there was talk during the summer.
He defected.
There was talk during the summer of him in a Brandon Ayuk trade potentially. So this has been lingering.
There you go.
Benedict Amari.
Yeah, there you go.
Good player. Liked him coming out of Alabama.
What a surprise.
By the way, you know who recruited Amari Cooper to Alabama?
Jeff Stoutland.
Yes. Yeah. He was actually, I think he was the first recruit of the, well, I think he was Jeff Stoutland's first big recruit, and Amari Cooper struck up a strong relationship with Jeff Stoutland's son, Jake.
There you go. That's cool.
All right.
Cover the Eagles, giving you the Eagles angle.
I thought it was good, Zach. I thought it was good.
Thank you.
Another super chat from Khalif who says, Nick also said that he made a call directly after the game in the presser. He may have thought that his call was more consequential than it was.
No, I think Nick's trying to fall on the sword.
Now, he also talked about the 3rd and 1, which Kellen Moore addressed. At the end of the first half, they could run the ball there. You could have a safer play. Kellen Moore explained that essentially this was like an automatic check in the game plan. They were waiting for a specific look. They had a play dialed up, and if they had been able to pick up the blitz, Kellen Moore said that DeVonta Smith was open for a potential touchdown. Is that what it looked like on film, Fran?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen goes to the line, and you can see it on the broadcast that he changes the play. And so as soon as, just kind of going through it, I'm like, all right, like this goes against what Nick just said in the post, because I'm watching that Sunday night. And I'm like, all right, Nick just said post game that he made that call, but you can see Jalen changing it. So Nick may have made a call, but Jalen changed it at the line. When he gets that alert, he comes out, he sees there's no safeties deep, so it's going to be probably cover 0, the full-out blitz. Changes the play. And Kellen said it was going to be a run play, right? So anticipate that.
So they had a run up. Yeah.
So it was. I guess they were going to run on 3rd and 1, which would have made sense. Remember, they had 2 timeouts at that point. They had plenty of time. They were trying not to use up times. That's why they didn't call timeout on that AJ Brown reception. So. To me, you can get into the debate whether or not Jalen should have made that change there at that point. That's a really tough sack to take on 3rd and 1. Obviously, leads to a much longer field goal attempt that gets blocked.
Is it open? Saquon could pick up that blitz, right?
If
Saquon should pick up that blitz.
If Saquon picks up that blitz, the throw is going to be there for Jalen Hurts. The guy that Jalen, because you would say if it's 0 blitz, there's one more that should have been picked up. The guy that Jalen was reading off of was nowhere near him. He should have been clean to be able to deliver that throw.
Even you could be. I'm willing to be generous to Sirianni here in covering for that. It could have been he's saying that he's the one who put that in the game plan, that this is an automatic check, right?
Yep.
But still, it's not exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, a pet peeve of mine generally is coaches or players when it's like, that play was there. And I thought Michael Clay did a good job explaining this today. He's like, everyone says it's like they're one block away, right?
Yep.
No, in most plays there's something there. The result of the play is what mattered.
No question. Yep.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. I mean, process over results. Like, if Saquon Barkley is usually very good at picking up blitzes, and you're relying on him to pick up this one guy, and if not, it's a touchdown, I think that's probably a good process.
It's what Fran said. Like, every blitz, in theory, should have someone open, right? Because you have a numbers advantage. So most of the time when someone sends a blitz, you could always say, that guy was open. That's the whole point of a blitz and a blitz beater is that
sure, you know that there's a risk reward, but I think it's okay to say that's okay process. If you're relying on someone who
I just don't like the play was there. Like, typically a play is there.
The play was there.
But typically that's the case in blitzing situations.
I think there are times when that's true and times when it is lip service.
I do think too the process, and I would say most times I would be perfectly fine with that process there. I think in that moment, situationally, I didn't love the idea to make that call if you're Jalen, just because
you're taking yourself out of easy field goal range. Yes. You could run the ball. You have 2 timeouts. Like, situationally, that's a dicey call.
I think they probably would have been better served probably running the ball, taking it, getting the first down, getting that next series, and then moving the ball from there.
By the way, I see in there, just want to address this. We should have mentioned at the top. AJ Jones in the chat says, why is no one updating Goddard's situation? I did ask Nick about Goddard and Darius Slay. He said they're still working through that. Typically what that means is that it's not a long-term deal, and they don't know if he's going to be there for Sunday or not. So Nick doesn't want to give that. He wants to kind of create he either wants to create that mystery for the Giants, or they're still trying to see if the player is going to make it to Sunday, but it's not of the same classification as Jordan Mailata, where he's going to miss a few weeks.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt for that.
No, that's okay.
Good. Yep.
That's fair. Now, I guess we have the details of the Amari Cooper trade. If you're interested, a 3rd and a 7th in exchange for Cooper and a 6th.
Okay.
So basically a 3rd.
Basically a 3rd.
Yeah. I mean, would you rather have?
Oh, we have more news.
Oh, hot and heavy. We got a trade deadline.
We had a lot
This one affects the Eagles.
Okay. Well, can we guess?
It's got to be
Give us a hint.
Hassan Reddick, right?
No, it's not a player. It's a schedule thing. But this is bad news for me.
Oh no!
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh no! What did they get flexed?
The Eagles-Bengals game is now at 1:00.
Oh no!
Yes. I still land in time.
Oh no! This is your wedding weekend. This is Nick's Saturday night wedding.
Right. Yes.
Oh, what a disaster!
No, that's fine. That's okay. That's okay. The Cincinnati airport's closed. I'll deal with traffic, but I will be there. The pregame show might be a little tight, but I will be there.
What time's the flight?
I think the flight lands at 10:30.
This is like the worst news you could have gotten today.
No,
realistically.
Come on. It's not about me here. But anyways, the Eagles.
Of course it's about you.
But the Eagles-Bengals game will now be 1 p.m. The spin on this is it's going to 70% of the country. Much greater distribution. And the Bears-Commanders game is flexed to 4:25. So that's Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels.
Right.
Oh, man. What a disaster.
The Eagles flexed out of the national spot, that 4:25 spot.
How you feeling?
I mean, we're probably getting another Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma game, which does not make me feel.
No, because this is still I mean, it's going to be the national.
I think it's CBS. Yeah, I think it's.
Oh, it's a CBS. Okay. So potentially.
How do I feel? I mean, I love my brother. I can't wait for his wedding. I'm so happy for him and Jesse, and that's the only thing I'm thinking about. I care about the show, and I will do my best to be in that seat for my pregame spot. But the great thing, I mean, Cincinnati. As long as we're not dealing with any weather delays, I'll get there. It's 15 minutes to the stadium. I'll have the Uber driver drop me off like a mile away if I have to, and then I'll walk. He can drop me off.
You sprint like you're parking a valet, baby.
Well, he can drop me off on the Kentucky side, and then you can walk across the bridge. He can drop you off in Covington, walk across the bridge, get to the stadium, and you don't have to deal with the traffic that way.
Okay.
The airport's in Kentucky.
I think you should do, and I can already see people are clamoring for this in the chat. I think you need to do like a travel log diary
Vince would love that.
of Sunday morning. What it's like for you getting.
Yeah, Vince would love that. I've done this one other time in my career. and that was when my wife was 9 months pregnant, and I went to the playoff game in Chicago, and
Double doink.
worked out well. Yeah,
There you go.
That was a later start, though.
that was a later start.
Yeah.
Yes, but that was also January. That
Okay.
game was January 6th.
Right.
So you're dealing with potential.
Holidays.
What?
Weather, yeah.
January 5th, maybe.
Boy, did you storm right to that stadium, Zach.
I don't appreciate that joke.
I mean, I don't think you need to be prosecuted just for going to the game on the day of.
Yeah. Oh God. All right. Nothing to worry about here.
Okay. Let's transition to a word from our sponsors. Specifically, our friends at Rite Aid and that LO Market. Hello. Cheerio. Come on in and get a drink over our friends at Rite Aid. You know, I was going to be fine until Julia started laughing, but if you need to go to the LO Market at Rite Aid, they've got all kinds of good stuff for you. Candy, snacks, pantry items. Candy, like classics like peach rings, Starlight mints, to gummy butterflies and sour worms. They've got your nuts and trail mixes, packed with vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, fiber, and protein. Popcorn? They got that too. Buttery, sweet and salty, cheddar and sea salt, beef jerky, packed with protein plus granola featuring whole grains and those good old pantry staples like honey and seasonings. Snack attack? Get LO Market delivered same day or buy online, pick up in store. Go to riteaid.com/shop to order. Cheerio.
This is a great time of year. There's every sport's basically going on right now. And that means there's ample opportunity to bet on sports. And the place to do that is at Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. They live stream 780,000 events each year. There's early payout offers across NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB, so you don't even have to wait until the end of the game. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting. Today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, total, player props, futures, and more. I want to tell you, every day they power up on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more with over 10,000 boosts every month. They boost specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. Keep an eye out for our custom PHLY bets and boosts. I always look forward to that. You can watch Jamie's show each week when he talks about the PHLY bets and boosts. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We thank them for sponsoring our show. There's a part in brackets that I was not supposed to.
Early on, I was in the same place at the end of that ad read where it feels like there's one other thing to say, and then you're like, oh, that's it. Okay. Before we get to the Jalen Hurts discussion and Fran's descent into borderline madness, going full Charlie Day after all those charts that are on your store and all PHLY.com. I want to talk specifically about the game plan in this game.
Yep.
And, you know, the wise man avoids all extremeness of it. 2 plays of play action, the fewest that Kellen Moore has ever done, the fewest that the Eagles have done dating back to 2016, the second fewest of any team in the league in a game this season. Leading into 12 personnel, even without Dallas Goedert. First of all, Zach, what did Kellen Moore say about those things and the seemingly odd game plan that the Eagles had in this game offensively?
He talked about how they were,
and the motion as well.
Yeah, how they were running a lot of tempo, and I guess the tempo is not conducive for that. So that was his explanation for the motion, for the middle of the field, his explanation there is they like their matchups on the outside, and that it's the type of thing that I mean every game's different. They kind of looked at the Jim Schwartz defense, but they really thought the matchups on the outside were the way to go. When Nick was asked us yesterday, Nick said Jalen made really good reads. And then as far as the play action, he said that's kind of how the game worked out there, but they do want play action to be part of their offense.
What did it look like watching it on film, Fran?
Yeah, I mean,
and what could be a reason why you would avoid play action against Jim Schwartz?
To me, honestly, the only thing I could think of would be if you ran it once early and you saw, hey, you know what, they're not respecting the run at all, and they're going to try and just go, pin their ears back and go after Jalen. But
which was not the case.
Not the case. They went 2 for 2 for explosive
The first
plays.
one was in the second quarter. It was that big play to Grant Calcaterra.
Yeah, the other one was the little dump off too.
And they were running the ball so much.
Right.
You would think that they would have to respect it.
Yeah, I don't have a good explanation for why they didn't have it in there. And even like if you wanted to say, the Cleveland's really good against play action. I mean, they were going into the game. So as the Eagles were putting together the game plan, they had seen play action Cleveland at the 10th highest rate in football, and they had the 11th best success rate against play action. So, yes, like positive, but not overwhelmingly so to the point where you would affect the game plan.
And their success rate is higher against not play action or coming into the game than it was against play action. So it's not like you were getting some kind of advantage based on the numbers at least.
Right. And so then it comes into the thing of, all right,
well, just terrified of Myles Garrett? Like,
or, could it be that, hey, they called a few and the plays were changed at the line, or, you start getting into some of these other things of like, okay, that was why they didn't show up in the game. But to only have 2 play action throws, we're going to get into the conversation later about just like the passing game in general. But if you don't that's what play action is, one way to create some easy throws. And so if you're going to say, all right, we're not doing that this game, or we're not doing motion in this game, or we're not a good screen team right now, we're not a good RPO team right now. Like, all right, well, you got to find something. One of these things you have to be really good at in order to make things easier for your offense.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to get to on the Jalen Hurts of it all. On the 12 personnel front, Kellen Moore did say something interesting, which was that like they thought coming into this game that like the coverage menu basically for Schwartz's defense against 12 is a little bit more predictable, essentially. Yep. Now they weren't always matching base. They were staying in nickel sometimes, but that was sort of what he was hinting at.
Yeah, and Jim Schwartz actually did something pretty unusual for him in this game. Early on, they came out not just in base defense, but in a base like 3-4 personnel defense where you had 3 defensive tackles on the field with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith outside. I hadn't seen that at all from Cleveland on film. So they came out and they did that early, namely against 12 personnel, I'm assuming to try and stop the run. And they did a lot to try. And honestly, it's very similar to what Vic Fangio did against New Orleans of putting a bunch of guys up on the line of scrimmage to try and deter against the run and mess with your run responsibilities. The Eagles had a lot of issues from an assignment standpoint up front in this game. And I think that was part of it, was just the changing of fronts there for Jim Schwartz.
I like to think of that as kind of a passive-aggressive message from Jim Schwartz to the Eagles organization. Like, not only am I the better defensive coordinator, I can even do your stuff better than you.
Yeah, I think
I want to put it past them.
Yeah, I know. I would not either. Now, they didn't do much in the second half, but I think, again, he came out and he did it in the first half. Over the first, 2 or 3 drives, saw it a handful of times.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you think about like decision journals in life sometimes, like you write about what you would have done, and then you kind of measure it against what happened. So when you and I were speaking on the pregame show before, you pointed out that the Browns were playing without their safeties, and that the way the Browns play, there'd be opportunities to go deep, and the explosives would be a big part of the offense. Do you think Kellen Moore's game plan made sense given the team they were playing, or do you think it's a convenient excuse?
No, I think that like the idea of going vertical against those guys, I think that makes sense. I think it's just it's more about like the way they go about it. I don't want to say unimaginative. That's not like that's a strong way of putting it. But I think that when you look at basically the way they go about trying to look, the AJ Brown touchdown on the slot fade where you had some motion, you moved Calcaterra outside, and that created some space for AJ to work. Like that was a nice, well drawn up play. But too often it was just, all right, AJ's lined up outside the numbers. AJ runs a fade outside the numbers. DeVonta Smith lines up outside the numbers. DeVonta Smith runs a go ball outside the numbers. Throw it, make sure, let's see if he can get it. Now, some of that, Jalen talked about, some of those are alerts where, hey, we're running 3 receivers over to the other side, but I get pressed man on this side. And that to me is an alert where I'm forget what's going on over here. That's my matchup. That's my throw. But so often, to me, like there are too many of those kinds of throws and not enough like really well designed, shot plays for Jalen Hurts in the offense.
Another super chat to get to, I believe, from CDP, who says, "Are these slow offensive starts due to the quarterback coach skipping work to go watch college football? Thanks for exposing the low work ethic at Novacare, Zach Berman."
No, I can assure you that is not the case. Everyone in that building made sure that I knew that Doug Nussmeier was back from meetings that Saturday night. There was nothing to worry about there, and they did actually win the game that he.
That's true.
Yeah, so they're 1-0 when he watches his son
spending all his time
in person.
Talking to prospective agents.
No, I don't think actually in this day and age they already have an agent.
Already done. Yeah, right.
So he has an agent already.
I like a Garrett Nussmeier watching him play.
What'd you think of that?
I think he's got some upside. Moves in the pocket, throwing the ball deep. I'm in.
I watched those 3 games for that piece, Zach. To me, he's going to be in that discussion. If he decides he wants to come out, he'll be talked about as one of the top quarterbacks off the board.
There we go. Putting in that early work, baby.
And you know what? You can if you haven't read it, you can subscribe at allphly.com. Become a diehard. Make sure you do that because you get Fran's film reviews. Like I said, every sport's going right now. We had a day this weekend when I think we had all 4 teams on the site, right? And I mean, I'll put our staff up against anyone's in the city. So, make sure you check that out, allphly.com.
Fighting words,
yeah. I'm proud of our staff. I think the talent in this building is incredible, starting with our head of production, Julia.
There you go. All right. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
And let's get into this with the Ace Hardware temperature check. We got one of these a week. You know what the deal. Because with Ace Hardware, you can visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. Are things heating up? Are things cooling down? Are things staying the same? You dove into all these next-gen numbers, Fran. Him when he's in the pocket, outside the pocket, completion percentage over expectation, when he's throwing the ball deep, all this stuff. What were your learnings? What were your big takeaways?
So the genesis of this was the stat that Next Gen Stats had put out on Sunday during the game after A.J. Brown's touchdown, where just going back to it. You could tell
during the show you were very triggered by this, and it sent you down a rabbit hole.
Well, so it was after the catch, and it said Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown. That's the 6th reception with an under 25% completion probability since 2022. So that's second in the NFL, behind only Jalen Hurts and DeVonta Smith, who has 7. So the Eagles have the top 2 players when it comes to making catches with less than 25% chance of being completed. And so now you might hear that, and obviously there's a lot of verbiage there. The big thing when you talk about like completion probability, you go on and actually I put a link to a video in the piece on allphly.com where you can go and look at how Next Gen comes up with those numbers, and really it comes down to I think it's like 9 or 10 factors, but the 5 most critical basically were the depth of the target, so how far down the field the throw is, the separation of the receiver, the distance to the sideline, so are you close to the middle of the field or are you out on the perimeter, the separation from the pass rush, so is the quarterback under pressure, and then the speed that the quarterback is traveling at the time of the throw. It's harder to complete a pass in theory, not in theory, but the data supports this, if the quarterback is on the run versus if he's stationary in the pocket. And so basically just did a deep dive into all of those different metrics to see exactly why things look so hard for Jalen Hurts and for the pass game, and how that has changed over the course of this 3-year stretch, where Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate in 2022, showed it at times, but certainly not down the stretch in 2023, and has not been that so far this year. To answer your question, in terms of what some of my big takeaways were, we talked in the past about how he's not pushing the ball vertically down the field as much this year. It's been a little, the average depth of target would support that. The percentage of those vertical throws, that is supported by the fact that, okay, he's not as aggressive down the field here this year.
Is that as simple as A.J. Brown's only played 2 games?
Potentially. But it also could be the fact that, they're still getting blitzed at a high rate, but the plan against the blitz has been much more defined, like to go to those hot routes this year. And so, and again, those you're dealing in small samples, and this is only a 5-game sample so far. And so, you have to keep the context there. But the thing that I found to be interesting is that, one number, I know Dane has talked about this with you guys in the past, is that Jalen typically ranks very highly in the completion percentage above expectation metric. And that's looking at that probability chances. All right, are you completing passes that, the typical pass would not be complete by a typical quarterback? It's still high for Jalen, despite the fact that the numbers are he's not going down the field as much. Right. So I know when I was texting you last night, that was one of the first things you said, and I saw that too. I was like, all right, well then where are these tough throws coming from? If he's not pushing the ball vertically, why are things so hard still?
Right, and how is the offense making things easier for him?
Right, and so I spent a long time going through some of these numbers. I'm not going to share all now. You have to go check out the piece.
Hold on, very quickly.
PHLY, yes.
Give you a second to get your thoughts.
Yes, go ahead.
Zach, you're smirking over here. What's going on? You have something that is like making you laugh over there.
No, first I'm enjoying this conversation. If AJ Brown were here, he would tell you that those numbers don't take into account AJ Brown, right? It's like I remember. There was a Steph Curry thing about like a bad shot, and they said it's not a bad shot when Steph Curry takes it, right? It's a bad shot when someone normal takes it. So I agree with those numbers. Like there's data behind it, but what AJ would tell you if I brought that up to him is that it doesn't factor in that AJ Brown's really good at catching a football.
He is, but it's still like they threw 4 or 5 of those balls to AJ in this game, and 2 of them were complete.
Good point.
Like it's a hard way to live, and even like one of the tables I looked at was the rate at which Jalen has thrown those vertical throws over the last 3 years, and again it has gone down every year. And this year it's like middle of the pack, whereas usually he's in like the top quarter of the league. And you could see one thing I did was, all right, what rate is Jalen doing all these things, and then what is the EPA per drop back on all of these? And if you look at the EPA per drop back on those vertical throws, I mean it's low. Like it's not just for Jalen, just in general. Those are hard throws to
for this
complete.
year, for over the last.
Just you see that trend over the last 3 years for quarterbacks across the league. Like that's not an easy thing to always try and complete. Now, I would say one of the big takeaways for me, certainly the middle of the field.
This is I think the big one of the most interesting conversations.
Yes. So let me go to the middle of the field table real quick. The middle of the field numbers we talked a couple weeks ago. Zach, I know that you talked about this with Sheil on his podcast last week. But I think when you look at the middle of the field numbers, they are down every year for Jalen, and he's at the bottom of the league right now in terms of attacking the middle of the field. And that's just an area where teams across the league are able to find those successful plays. And when you look right now, like. Lamar Jackson is averaging 0. I'm not going to get into the exact numbers, but very, very fertile part of the field to be able to find explosive plays. The Eagles are just not addressing that. Jalen Hurts right now.
Just to say, over the past 3 years, Jalen Hurts, of the 43 qualifying quarterbacks, throws the ball over the middle of the field 43rd.
And by like a wide margin, by 4 percentage points.
Yes, under 17% of the time. The 2 guys ahead of him are Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett, right? Last year, he was 25th, or 2022, he was 25th of 27. Last year, he was 28th of 28. This year, he's 32nd of 33. That is 3 different offensive coordinators.
Yes.
Yep.
So there is reason to believe that this is not just the offense. This is Jalen Hurts. So why would that be?
So some quarterbacks, feel more comfortable attacking different parts of the field than others. Could be that. There was the reporting, was that Tim McManus last year?
Yeah, which is still so hard to
it doesn't jive with reality.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of he wanted more middle of the field throws. Here's my thing on it. I think that let's say that Jalen doesn't like throwing in the middle of the field. Let's say that that's the truth, right? I would also say that, all right, well then there's an old coaching axiom where it's like you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. I'm pretty sure. And so to me, I think that when you look at it and you say, all right, well, right now they're leaning into that with Jalen. All right, well, if he's not gonna throw the ball in the middle of the field, we're just not gonna call plays.
Well, that's the other question is he passing up open guys in the middle of the field, or are they just not even really trying to attack the middle of the field?
No, Julia, I sent you a couple of pictures. It's so basically looking at the route trees for AJ Brown, for DeVonta Smith, for Dallas Goedert. I think it's most pronounced with AJ, and I think it's easiest to see with AJ just because he's only played 2 games, so it's less of a jumble. But when you look at it, you can see he's not doing a lot of work over the middle of the field. And remember, in Tennessee, he was one of the best middle of the field receivers in football. That's where he did the majority of his work for Arthur Smith and for Ryan Tannehill and for that team, was on those in-breaking routes. So, working the middle of the yards after the catch. That's what we thought the Eagles were getting when they made that trade. We weren't even counting the fact that he could be a ball winner down the field and winning on the vertical game. That was a bonus on top of what you expected. And they're just not tapping into that part of his game right now. And so we know what DeVonta Smith can do with the ball in his hands. Dallas Goedert certainly over the middle of the field. But right now, they just aren't calling those plays. It shows up. This is, I believe this is the A.J. Brown tree. Thank you, Julia. So this is the A.J. Brown tree. And again, like you can see, the large majority, and that's not just all of his targets, that's all of his routes run. Everything is working hash marks and out, right? Everything is working, out towards the perimeter of the field. And so just finding new ways to be able to get those guys the ball in the middle of the field. The other part of this too, and with all of these metrics, because I deal with a lot of these when looking at draft prospects, and you can get caught up with, obsessing about one thing and saying like, this is the magic bullet to fix the Eagles offense. For so many of us, it's talking about like motion. It doesn't have to be motion. It doesn't have to be work in the middle of the field. It doesn't have to be play action. It's got to be something. You got to find something to make things easier. And right now, it's just they're playing everything on expert level for Jalen. It just makes it's a hard way to live.
One comment that I've heard from multiple fans is that this looks a lot like the offense from last year and not the offense that they were promised Kellen Moore would bring. I did ask Kellen Moore today how this offense compares to what he's run in the past. And he didn't give a succinct answer to that. He said there was a lot of kind of collaboration during the offseason, and he said
the goal is the 2024 Eagles offense.
Yeah, he said this is the 2024 Eagles offense. So keep that in mind too, because there are, I think Bo put it well on yesterday's show that this is Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Jeff Stoutland. There's a lot of different voices in there when they put this offense together, and of course Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts makes there was a process during the summer when Jalen Hurts looked at the menu and decided the plays that he thought fit him best.
And that's where I think what you're saying comes into play. Whereas, like, the more you do it this way, the more that you are passing up opportunities to make the offense better, even if it's not the thing that the quarterback is comfortable with.
And then, there was when Matt LaFleur first got to Green Bay, there was like this big adjustment because Aaron Rodgers didn't like motion and LaFleur did. And so there was like that butting of heads initially. I
gotta be the most important guy.
He did his own research, and his own research said he didn't want to use motion in their offense. But I think when you look at the way, once he found ways to kind of meet him in the middle, he had an MVP year, right? He was one of the best passers in football. So I think when you look at just finding ways to try and meet the quarterback in the middle there, I think it's incumbent upon the coaches to be able to do that. I would say the other takeaway as well, and this one was interesting, that last bullet point from Next Gen in terms of what determines whether a throw is a high probability or low probability was the quarterback on the move. And that can happen for a number of different reasons. Obviously, quarterbacks that scramble and break the pocket, those guys are going to be on the run. They define on the run as moving at 8 miles an hour or more. So how often does that happen with Jalen Hurts? Well, you just right. Yeah, you're going off the GPS number. And so the number for Jalen Hurts, he'd been kind of middle of the pack over the course of his the last 3 years, but this year he's last in the league, and in terms of how often he is making those throws on the run, meaning he's doing it the most often. So just under 23% of his throws are happening when he's on the run.
So he's doing that more than anybody else in the league.
More than anybody in the league.
That's like when all of his throwaways happen, right?
Yeah, but also to me, when I look at that stat, sometimes that could be telling of, this is a lot of, like Kirk Cousins in other years has, he's been up there. Derek Carr is up there on that list. Has a lot of like play action, move the pocket, under center, those boot plays. We don't. That's not here in this offense. So you're leading the league in that category without having that. To me, that shows. And when you look back in years past at who are some of the other quarterbacks that rank that high, it's typically like rookies or guys that aren't playing well. And so that looks like to me like a quarterback that doesn't feel settled with what he's reading out early in the down, and now he's trying to break the pocket and try and make those plays. And so for that to happen, they have to find different ways to be able to get the ball out of his hands fast. Right now, he's got the highest. I will say I started down the reason why it took me so long to get through this data is that I started going through like other metrics. And it wasn't telling the story the way I wanted to, because you would look at like just clean dropbacks and you say like, oh, like Jalen's his yards per attempt is up. All the things you would look for in terms of markers, like it looks pretty good. But average time to throw was like the highest in the league, along with Bo Nix. And it's like, all right, well, why is that happening? But Lamar Jackson's up there, Patrick Mahomes is up there. That's not a huge thing in terms of getting carried away. In terms of average time to throw, a lot of people will point to, oh, he holds on to the ball too long. That's not an indicator of
descriptive versus predictive, right?
Yes, that's what I always try and say. With all of these numbers, you don't want to get too in the weeds on any one of those things.
All right. Well, we will talk a little bit more about this in a second after another word from our sponsors. Now, Fran, I heard you mention Arthur Smith in passing there, and it brings up some trauma about the way that I'm relentlessly bullied on this program by one of the co-hosts, and one of the things that he harangues me for is my hair.
That's not true.
Ceaselessly poking fun. And so, sometimes you got to do your own research. And that could be, for me, where the good people at Glatt Hair Restoration come in. And what makes Glatt Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical the best option in the area? Well, it's the same peerless approach to care that they used to have, the same expert team, the same unmatched Glatt system, same state-of-the-art location, same stellar results, and under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, a highly respected plastic surgeon. This is the crew for you. Each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience. Hair restoration is all they do. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation, and their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
Well, Bo, let's talk about our friends now at Rugged Road, because summer is over. So if you're in the Northeast like us, that might mean no more beach, but that doesn't mean that your time in the outdoors is over. Maybe you are like former Eagle Chris Long, and you like to get out on the river, out in the lake. Maybe you're like former Eagle Michael Vick, and you like to get on a boat and do some fishing. You could be like former Eagle Trent Cole, and you like to get up in a tree, take some shots at some local wildlife. To each his own, whatever floats your boat. But if you like being in the outdoors, you have to know about our friends at Rugged Road. Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring that they perform in the toughest conditions, whether you're on land or water. Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique features of Rugged Road coolers is their ability to always float upright. You never lose a drink when you're using a Rugged Road cooler. Unlike other heavy-duty coolers, Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip without compromising on performance. They are crafted to handle the toughest environments. Their coolers are built to last, ensuring that they can keep up with any adventure. The coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days, but oftentimes much longer than that, and they are perfect for a variety of outdoor activities. Like I mentioned, fishing, tubing, camping, tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor or sports enthusiast. Gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code PHLY for 10% off.
Super chat from Aaron, who says, is trading DeVonta for a number one edge rusher the path, Zach?
No. Excuse me. No. Sorry, Aaron. A, they're not trading DeVonta Smith. DeVonta Smith is a core player here. He's not being moved right now, or I would imagine anytime soon. And I don't think that that's the avenue the Eagles are going to explore. I think if the Eagles were to add an edge rusher, it wouldn't be like a top of the roster guy. I think it would be more like supplemental at this point, because they already traded significant draft inventory, relatively speaking, to get Jahan Dotson. I don't think the Eagles are moving in another pick in the first 3 rounds.
Well, let's talk about this. What
I mean, unless
we
it's
got-
like
we got
Myles
hot
Garrett.
and heavy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we got hot and heavy trade action today.
Yeah.
If the Eagles were to make an addition, and that's certainly Howie's
Yeah.
MO to make something happen, what position do you think it would be?
Well, I keep going back to edge rusher because I think that is where they need help.
Mhm.
Now, I thought Nolan Smith had a good game,
Yep.
relatively speaking, last week. They're hoping Bryce Huff continues to play better. As you said on yesterday's show, he showed some signs.
I mean,
Vic Fangio has
marginally,
today.
Yeah.
About the 4-point stance. I know that's come up. Vic Fangio said Bryce Huff's always had the opportunity to do or has been able to do that in third down situations.
The funniest
It doesn't
thing was-
help him in first and second
Well,
down.
the funniest thing was he said he was asked like, does that make it easier for him to go? And Vic's like, well, he thinks it does.
yeah.
That's kind of what I was saying last week.
That's
Like
fine.
the get off time was the same, but roughly the same
Right.
from last year this year. So I don't think that him putting his hand in the dirt really changes that all that much.
Yeah, so otherwise, I mean, edge rusher, if everyone's healthy, would be the position that I would say. But look, if there's an injury to tight end is definitely a spot there. If Jordan Mailata is out for an extended period, I don't think you go and you get a tackle. The Eagles have depth there.
Yep.
But that's I think it would either be injury related or it would be an edge rusher.
Should they be buyers at the trade deadline?
I mean, unless it's well, I don't know. I mean, if we're talking like a marginal 6th round pick for a guy who is an upgrade or can add to the edge rush group, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
If we're talking like a monster addition of like sending a 1st round pick for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby or something like that, I mean, I think that's risky, but you could talk me into it. But it's that middle ground that always is the least efficient in my eyes, like the Jahan Dotson thing. But
Yeah, I think though that the Eagles are going to see an opportunity in the division in particular. This is I know the Commanders are playing well. I don't think the Commanders are like the Lions or a lot of the teams in the NFC North. Frankly, the NFC North is loaded right now, right? I think the Cowboys are clearly struggling. We'll see the Giants up close this weekend, but that's not a team that I think factors into the playoff mix. I don't think the Eagles push all their chips in. I don't think this is like the year. And they actually had the wrong kind of interpretation of their team. But when they were interested in Jalen Ramsey or Minkah Fitzpatrick, and those were both ascending players, but they were willing to trade 1st-round picks in those cases, right?
Yep.
I think the Eagles are going to hold those day 1 and day 2 picks pretty close. And I think if there's a move, it's like Jadeveon Clowney type, who you kind of add to your edge rusher rotation.
well, we've also seen, and it's playing out in these trades, that the market for in-season trades is much more of a seller's market than a buyer's market, right? Like the prices are different, and so you can make a case for selling somebody if that opportunity arises. Like I don't know who that would be necessarily. I mean Huff, Jordan Davis,
Slay.
like,
I mean,
yeah, Slay,
yeah, Slay would be the guy. But and Bo and I talked about this last year during free agency.
Dotson.
I wish we had Fran on the show then. But really, the reason for this is teams talk themselves into like, all right, we're really close. We need a guy who can push us over the edge, and also, the people making the trade, in particular the GMs, they're not as invested in the draft process during the season. So that draft pick doesn't really have like a name associated for it. I always say it's much harder for GMs to trade a draft pick leading up to the draft because you have an idea of who that guy's going to be. It's like, am I going to trade this pick who could be player X who we just met, who we had these meetings with, and during the season, that those draft picks don't really have the group of players associated to them.
Especially because in season it's we got to beat the Giants on Sunday. There's a little bit more importance and put on winning in the now this time of year.
The scheduled free agents for the Eagles on the roster. Now, there's one guy on here who I would say is probably the most likely guy. Zach Bond, Mekhi Becton, DeVonta Maddox, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, obviously not, Milton Williams, Fred Johnson, Kenny Gainwell, Isaiah Rodgers. Those are the big ones. To me, Isaiah Rodgers is actually a guy who I could see.
Yeah, that would be the
trading.
one I would think of too. Yep.
Although I didn't think Healy looked that good in limited action the other day, but I see your point.
Laid a guy out. I mean, I don't know.
True. Yeah, I could certainly see that when you look at the free agency part of it. There is a world where they say like, man, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell are a really good combination here.
Right.
Do we move Slay? But I don't think they move Slay.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Another super chat from JASDM who says, after the Mailata injury, did Jalen make 2 quick middle of the throws for hitting Smith on the mesh touchdown? Is the best O-line a factor stunting Jalen using middle of the field? I do think that is, and that played out in one of the things that you were looking at was like the time to throw on when it is a clean pocket, which you didn't end up putting in the piece, but you were looking at last night. That to me is a reflection of it's just a good offensive line.
Right. I think that, and that's a good point. I actually hadn't even put that together, but he was, again, leading the NFL in terms of the average time to throw from a clean pocket, meaning that he was holding on to the ball the longest in those scenarios. I just think it goes back to how many of those plays where we see him, start to the one side, doesn't like it. Now he comes back to the other, and that's when the scramble drive. I feel like that accounts for a lot of that holding the ball. But he's granted that by the fact that he typically has had a good offensive line play in front of him. He's a little bit lower on the pressure rate this year, only because of that. That Tampa Bay game, I think, carries a lot of weight there, and that's the problem with having the small sample size. I think that'll level out now that Lane Johnson's back in the lineup. Can
we do a little just sort of rapid fire questions on the tape for you?
I like this. Yeah. I have some.
Let me start with the running game. Why was the running game so much less successful for the Eagles in this matchup?
The O-line did not play particularly well in the run game. They really struggled with moving Dalvin Tomlinson at the point of attack, their nose tackle for Cleveland. I didn't think that Cam Jurgens played all that well. Him and Landon Dickerson struggled on their double teams on Tomlinson. But then even with that, they struggled then blocking the backside. I think the Mekhi Becton and Lane Johnson, their timing on a lot of those blocks wasn't always great. I mentioned what Jim Schwartz was doing with mixing up their fronts. I think that led to some of the issues as well. And so, to me, it wasn't necessarily like a Saquon issue, but the run game itself, this was the first time really in a while that I can remember where it looked pedestrian. They just did not look like they didn't have any of those like special runs. They had a couple that went for like 6 or 7 yards that there was a nice game plan play. The very first play of the game, they came out in 12 personnel, the 2 tight ends outside, and Cleveland had trouble getting lined up to that. And they were able to get a cheap 6 yards there. But in terms of like inside zone, downhill, they didn't really have any explosives in that way.
And they've got the best nose tackle in football coming this week.
Yeah, and so they're going to need to play better, certainly at the point of attack in this one, because the Giants have been much better from that standpoint.
Did you see a marked difference between Cooper DeJean and DeVonta Maddox?
I don't know if I would say market improvement. I do think that Cooper played pretty well. It wasn't to the level of, say, Quinyon Mitchell's debut in week 1 against Green Bay, but I think he did some good things. There were some miscommunications you could see between he and some of the other guys on some of the motion play. Him and C.J. Gardner-Johnson early had a miscommunication, but there was another one where there was a receiver running scot-free. I want to say it was Cooper on like a 25-yarder going to the right side. But outside of that, I thought it was overall, it was not a great day, but it wasn't a bad day for DeJean.
Feels like Nakobe Dean has backslid a little bit over the past couple of games. How much of a concern is that?
Doesn't make me feel good, certainly. I think that when you saw like that 2-game stretch against like Atlanta and New Orleans, felt really good about where he was at in terms of just being a solid replacement level starter. And these last 2 games against Tampa and now against the Browns, not so much. We've seen missed tackles. We've seen the athletic limitations show up with Nakobe Dean. We've seen the size limitations show up with Nakobe Dean at times. He's gotten a little nosy in terms of when he's one-on-one with a blocker, because linebacker trying to fit up the run as a linebacker, it's important that you maintain your gap, right? So even if you lose, like it's important that you lose in your gap because at least then you are forcing the runner to go another way. Too often he's one-on-one with a guy and he tries to run around the block or he ends up losing on the block and gets removed from his spot. Now the running back's got that path to get downhill. It hasn't happened, 8 or 9 times, but it's happened like 3 or 4 times in the last couple of games, and that's just something that he needs to get cleaned up, certainly.
I wrote about special teams.
Yep.
As one of my 5 takeaways from the game, I asked Nick Sirianni about it. Spoke to Michael Clay today. It's been 3 catastrophic plays, and catastrophic is the term that the Eagles are using in consecutive games. I know it's one play, but anything film showed you that the Eagles can learn from there?
Yeah, I mean, there was basically what Cleveland did was they held down the long snapper there and allowed Garrett to jump over, and it was what the Giants did a week ago to get Isaiah Simmons free. So
those athletes, man.
Yeah, if you got them, use them. Keely Ringo could be one of those guys. I think when you're looking at what they correct, I mean, all of them were for different reasons, right? The punt block, the field goal block, you just you got to learn from them and move on. I think that it's such a small sample to get overly concerned by, but they certainly don't want to have those happen, and certainly to result in a touchdown.
We've talked about this for a long time.
It's a fun game, by the way. Yeah.
The
I'm enjoying this.
The special team stuff, and like my plea to treat special teams like you treat linebackers, just knowing that the Eagles don't invest in it, and it probably takes some time. For instance, I'm just looking at their snap counts of the 8 guys who take the most snaps on special teams. 6 of them are playing for the team for the first time this year. There's so much turnover there. It takes some time. Not that they need to do better, obviously.
Yeah,
like,
so
you got to do a better job.
Yeah,
Michael Clay's the only one of these coordinators who has finished first in DVOA over the past 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not calling for Clay's job, but I think this is problematic because it's one, like, the expectation should be, all right, you don't have to be great, just hold serve, right? Yeah. To have 3 plays where, like, the Eagles aren't a good enough team to give easy points or give a possession away.
Yep.
And so it'd be one thing if it's like the 2022 Eagles and they're so good and it's like, yeah, special teams can get better, but it's not really like costing them games.
Right.
Like, they're not good enough that if you give away points or you give away possessions, it's going to cost you games.
With that.
Yeah.
I think the blocked punt is the one that I would be the most concerned about because, like, the DeJean fumble, that's like, you just got a guy being a moron. Yeah. Like, that's one thing. And then the Myles Garrett one is like, I mean, I guess you got to have a better plan for Myles Garrett, but that's like just an insane person doing a Superman thing. The block punt, like, you got to have that short up. So
I'd agree.
All right. How about, how's Mekhi Becton doing?
A little bit up and down. I mean, the thing is that I think he's been better overall in the run game than in the pass game. But as I mentioned earlier, I didn't think he was particularly strong in the run game in this one. So he's coming along. I think he's been an average starter with moments of really, really good. And then some moments where, like, I think the teams have gotten after him with their stunts. That's going to be a big thing here in this one because the Giants have been really, really good with their stunting and slanting. My guess is that they will target Mekhi Becton. Missing Kayvon. Look, Kayvon Thibodeau did not play particularly well last year. I thought that he was just kind of a guy for them. Hence why they went out and traded for Brian Burns. But I thought he was playing really, really well. Now they've gotten really good play out of Azeez Ojulari so far. So I was a big Ojulari guy when he was coming out. Was he? I forgot that.
Or no, his parents met in Philly. Oh. That's what it is. Yes. Okay.
Easy there. I think I think Becton has played okay. He's not been great. He hasn't been bad, but just been okay.
They were thinking about Philly when he was made.
no, they were. I think they met in Philadelphia and then moved to Georgia. Sorry about that.
Make sure you become a diehard, by the way.
Yeah. I heard, someone said, why aren't you talking more about Grant Calcaterra? Is there a reason to talk about Grant Calcaterra?
Yeah, I mean, he did some good things as a receiver in this game. Certainly showed what they see in him as a pass catcher. As a blocker, like, he's not going to be that kind of enforcement type. He can do enough to where you hope that he, like, loses slowly. Like, you want to get him to get to the point where he was Zach Ertz, right? Because Ertz was never like a plus blocker. But if you can get to the point where, hey, just don't lose right away, then that's a win. Too often he's losing right away for them at the point of attack, and that gets into the conversations we've had about. You have Stoll on the 53, put him in those spots as opposed to Calcaterra. My guess is that if Goddard can't go, we'll see the proper usage for both here in this one.
I have one more question for you. And we haven't talked about it yet, you and I, Zach.
Okay.
But the pleasure and the joy of getting to watch Michael Dunn play in the stands on Sunday, I mean, fantastic. And what a job he did having to move from right guard to center mid-game, his first extensive action of the season. I think the longtime sickos would have been moved by that as well. How did our boy look?
He looked pretty good. Yeah, he did. He did some good things. He knocked Jalen Carter down on one where Carter went to jump up and try and deter a throw.
Punish jumpers.
So he went down. He was able to punish the jumper there. He did have a couple mental errors, it seemed, where there were some pass offs on stunts. If there were a couple where I wasn't sure if it was on him or if it was on the rookie right guard Zach Center. That part of that also is that the fact that this was his first real action of the season and also had to change positions mid game. But overall, I thought he did pretty well.
All right. I think lock in a full-time job. Let's go.
I'd be in favor of that. I'm looking up the Ojulari nugget here because I'm all worried but I'm pretty sure.
I see here, according to Wikipedia, Zach, that he is his maternal grandfather was the late Yoruban artist and musician Twin 77. Maybe that's what you were thinking about.
That's definitely not what I was thinking about here. Let me see here. If you can fill this up for
I'll keep talking. I thought Jordan Davis played better than people thought.
Interesting.
I thought that some people, I forget exactly where I heard, but it was out there that.
Well,
Jordan
the
Davis
fact that his snap counts are low, relatively speaking, and that Vic Fangio and Jordan Davis talked all summer about that he was going to have to play a lot of snaps.
To me, it comes down to what are your expectations of Jordan Davis right now? And if your expectations are what the Eagles drafted him to be a couple years ago, yeah, he's not that. But I think in terms of like how I'm viewing Jordan Davis right now, which is like a rotational nose tackle that's going to be able to stop the run for you on early downs and do some of that, like he's doing that well. But he's not giving you anything right now as a rusher. And he's not like... I thought there were a couple plays in this game where he stacked the block, put his hands into the guy's chest, locked out, and got off the block and made a play. We saw 2 of those in this game. We don't see enough of that. Like he's not the dominant run defender that you want him to be. He's a good run defender.
Yeah.
So that would be, I would say, like the.
Yeah, I think you're right that it is hard to move off of the expectation that there was supposed to be more coming. Yeah. And we have to adjust to he's just a good first and second down player.
I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, and if the rest comes, then I will be pleasantly surprised. But I don't know that it's going to come.
From a defensive game plan standpoint, did it look like Vic Fangio was sort of disrespecting the capability of the Browns offense?
No, I mean, they were pretty basic with how they lined up.
What I mean,
yeah, right? I think this was more of like an execution style game for the Eagles defense where it was like, hey, let's go out, let's line up and do what we do. It's honestly what I was hoping we would see from the offense, right? Like come out and just however you're going to, whatever you want to focus on coming out of the bye, like come out and like look good doing it. I think that the defense came out. It was mostly like 4-down looks. They came out and base a handful of times, but it was mostly 4-down looks. And the guys played downhill. I thought the defensive line played well. You got to keep in mind who they're going up against. That offensive line has struggled, namely on the outside, on the perimeter. And Deshaun Watson obviously did not play well again in this game. And so you take that, contextually here with this performance. But to get 5 sacks was good. You only had 6 coming in. I think that's something that could be a jumping off point, give them a little bit of juice moving forward. I thought Nolan Smith, as Zach alluded to, played well. Saw some good things from Josh Sweat in this game. He had a couple of nice rushes that I noted in my notes. So, hopefully that could be something that they can springboard off of here moving forward.
So here it is from our friend Dane Brugler. Okay. In 2021, his mother Bolanle and father Monsuru are Nigerian natives who met in the mid-90s after moving to the United States, in parentheses, Philadelphia. They married and settled down in the Atlanta area. So, yeah. Aziz Ojulari, his parents met moved to Philadelphia when they moved here. So it's a Philadelphia love story.
Sure.
Yes.
This is a classic. I think we can say the first thing you do when you get the beast is you search for the word Philadelphia.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Speaking of Philadelphia, what did you make, Zach, of Dave McCormick coming to the Eagles tailgate and then tweeting about the Steelers game?
I'm not familiar with this.
Oh, it was good.
I'm not really familiar with this. Is that okay? Yeah.
He tweeted out a picture of the tailgate and then said, "Had fun at the tailgate today. Looking forward to the Steelers win," or something along those lines.
Watching the Steelers, whatever game.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Your alerts are you get more alerts than I do on the I
don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not getting alerts for it.
I had no idea this happened. I had no idea this existed. I was,
I thought you covered the Eagles.
It's about the Steelers, apparently, right?
Was that in the Aziz Ojolari report, or was it in BJ Ojolari as well?
This was Aziz.
Got
this
it.
was Aziz. It might have been in BJ's, but I associate it with Aziz.
Okay. Well, good episode. Fun to talk ball today. We thank you, Fran, for joining us. Thank you, Julia, for making it happen. We will talk more about the Giants on Thursday and what they bring to the table. Tomorrow's show, you got Jamie and Les in studio. So we're looking forward to that. Zach, anything else to add?
The Eagles are back at practice tomorrow.
Will it be a walkthrough? Will Vic Fangio be able to assess his defensive personnel?
Actually, if they have guys beat up, it might be. But no, my guess is it's a practice. I will have a video update later. We have a column coming up on allphly.com from Les Bowen. We have a great piece up already from Fran Duffy today. We have more from me this week. And then I will be on the show tomorrow. I will at the top of the show, I'll give you a Nick Sirianni update at 2:00 tomorrow.
Did you have something?
We have clamoring in the chat for a swooper.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes. Well, let's go through it.
Yeah.
Fran, the Eagles recover a fumble on defense. Did not happen.
Nope.
The Browns convert fewer than their league low 18.2% of third down.
I thought there was no chance this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And
it was very close.
I mean, it was very, very close. If that it was the Amari Cooper catch at the end, if that does not happen, that was the one where I was very angry at Cooper DeJean while watching the film. I was like, Cooper, if you were just a little bit more outside there, takes away that throw.
Good. Yeah. And then the Eagles defense forces at least 2 3-and-outs. You hit on that one.
Yes.
So 1 for you. Zach, the Eagles win by double digits. Did not happen. A.J. Brown has 120-plus receiving yards. Very close. Very close to happening, but did not happen. And an Eagles player has a catch for the same number of yards as his jersey number. Did this happen?
I believe that DeVonta Smith had a 6-yard catch. I believe so.
Good for you. That's
because there was one time when he had 2 catches for 19 yards and his long was 13. So.
Okay. All right. Nice job.
If I did math.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then I had Saquon runs for at least 100 yards. Did not happen. The Eagles score in the first quarter and late at halftime. Did not happen. Jameis Winston throws more than 5 passes. Did not happen. The Eagles get at least as many sacks on defense as they do offensive touchdowns on offense. That did happen.
Yep.
A PHLY employee tweets a photo of Howie Roseman and Jim Schwartz talking on the field pregame. That did happen. So I clinched there, and then I also got the Eagles win the game, which I paid a lot for. So maybe I didn't need to pay all that much for it, but if I hadn't, then one of you would have got it, and so it would have been a push.
Yep.
So I tie Fran at the top of the scoreboard. However, I will be without 18 turkeys this week, while the 2 of you have extra turkeys remaining. So
how many do we start with every week?
24.
24. All right, so you only have 6 turkeys going to this one.
Well, I'm going to be putting really rare items up for bid, I guess.
We'll be pulling a ZB on Thursday.
That's right. All right.
Wait, my items.
I believe your items have the lowest hit rate.
Yeah, none of my items hit this week.
Yeah, none of your items hit this week. Again.
None of my items hit this week. You know what?
I think you're like 2 for 9. I think on the year, something along those lines.
I thought that was the purpose of this.
No,
the purpose of this is to not have things happen.
Is to create an element of is to create a challenge. You have to decide, are you going to allocate your turkeys to this or not?
Well, sure, but I think to say that the purpose is to make things that are unlikely to happen, that's not the purpose.
It's
the purpose is to make the game a little bit more exciting, have something else to pay attention to.
I mean,
you also want to mix it up. You want to have some things that are likely, some things that are unlikely. That's the dance. That's the art of the swooper.
It sounds odd to say for someone who is on a daily show, but I think scarcity is a good thing sometimes, right? And so, scarcity of resources is a good thing.
I don't think that we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, I think. Yes, we are. Yeah, I'm saying it's. I'm not gonna get into it. We're already at 3:13.
You have 38 turkeys next week. Not a scarcity of resources.
Yeah, we have super chats coming up.
Ooh, there we go.
Okay. The Pump Man, Brian Pumper, says, will Slay dodge MetLife? I sure hope so, because we have other guys, but he is a known MetLife dodger.
I don't think that's what it is. But
I think it's a good conspiracy theory.
That turf last night took Mike Williams down in a bad spot.
He wasn't running the red line. He's got to run the red line. I mean, we had to trade for somebody who can do that.
I've listened to Aaron Rodgers on a lot of press conferences. I've never heard him make that sound. Yeah.
Can't spell Jetstream without Jets team.
Yeah, I'm missing the joke here, but okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the super chat, Brian. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around till the end. That's when the good stuff happens. We will talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.